Hi there, so today I decided I'd make a short video about seed sowing and I'm going to be sowing flowers today. I have already sown quite a lot of vegetable seeds, tomatoes, chilies, really my tender vegetables that are going to be staying in the greenhouse. I won't be sowing tender things that will be going outside such as courgettes, runner beans, French beans, for some time yet because they're not hardy and we're not safe of a frost or of no frost in this area until really at least the middle of May. So I'll be sowing those in the next week or two, ready so that they'll be ready for planting out as soon as the frosts are finished. Trouble is, if you sow them too early, they do tend to get drawn and leggy and stressed, and that's not good for the plant. So I prefer to wait a while before I sow those. But today I thought I'd sow some flower seed, and I've got a variety of things I'm sowing today. But I'm going to start with these wildflowers. So these are Oxeye Daisy, Leucanthemum vulgaris, and there is, believe it or not, 600 seeds in this packet. But I'm going to sow them in a big tray, which I've prepared here, and I want a lot of plants because what I'm hoping to do is to plant those around the periphery of my field. So I've carefully opened the packet in case I do want to save any. Always follow the instructions on the seed packet, the directions on the packet, and always store your seed in a cool, dry place. A plastic tub in the fridge is ideal with a little sachet of silica just to stop them from getting too moist. So what I'm going to do is just flick the top of this seed packet. That just encourages all the seeds to drop to the bottom, and carefully tear along the top here. And then I'm just going to open them. Oh, they're quite small seed. I'm just going to knock a few into the palm of my hand here. And I do want quite a lot of plants, but the key is to not sow them too thickly. You have much better success if they're sown thinly. And what I've got in here is a multi-purpose compost. Ordinarily I try and get peat-free, but it was a bit tricky to get hold of at this time, so it was a bit of Hobson's choice. So I filled this container, this tray to the top, levelled it off with the wood, giving it a bash, some sieved compost just on top to give me a fine seed bed, and I have already given this a fine watering with a fine hose. So as you can see here, the seed just in the palm of my hand, and if you curve your hand up, you can encourage the seed to come out of these channels in your hand. So I'm just going to hold my hand above the tray and tap my wrist. My daughter's got the giggles now for some reason. I'm watching, she's my videographer and she thinks something's funny. But anyway, you can just see those, sewing them really nice and thinly along the surface here. And these work, I won't put these in the propagator when they're sown. They don't need a huge amount of heat. They are a native wildflower. So I will just cover them with a very fine covering of compost, which I'll use a sieve for. If you don't have a garden sieve, you could use a kitchen sieve. And so you can just see, now there's going to be a lot of plants there if they all germinate, and I don't want to sow them any bigger than that, so that's enough. So I'm just going to just cover those. You could use vermiculite to cover the seeds. It's quite expensive to buy. I tend to just use compost. And literally just a fine covering. I'm just going to wipe it off the edge there. It's important to label your seeds, unless you're just sowing one lot of things, but literally it's so easy to forget. I've done it times where you think, oh, I'll remember, and you don't. So little label, and I like to write the date that they were sown. And they'll go into my hot end just on the shelf, but I'll just put them down there for now. And when I get to the next stage of pricking out, I shall show you what I do with those. So let's have a look what else I've got here. I'm going to go for a lobelia here. This is one called White Cascade. I'm not 100% sure whether these seeds will be viable because this seed packet's quite old. And these are really tiny seed. So I may struggle to even get them out of the packet. You can see they're almost just like little grains of sand, almost dusty. And so I'm going to just tap those into my hand there. And I've just got a really small tray for these. And actually these are so small, these seedlings are so small, when I prick those out, so when they've germinated and I prick them out, these will be pricked out in bunches. And I'm literally, same technique, just sowing those on the surface here of this compost. And it is important with the whatever you're using to sow the seeds in, it's really important that it's clean, that it's sterile. So make sure you've washed anything, just in hot soapy water will be fine. And it doesn't have to be a specific seed tray. You could use something like a punnet from mushrooms, as long as it's got drainage. Improvised margarine tubs with holes made in the bottom will work. And these want some heat to germinate, so these will go in my propagator, and germination will probably take 7 to 14 days. Again, not all seed does want light for germination, so it's important to read the packet. And these are so fine, these seeds, that these won't be covered. So literally just sown on the surface, and that's it, and they'll go off into my propagator. Now, it is important that you have sterile compost, really. Garden soil won't do for sowing seeds. There's potentially too many germs in it and too many pathogens, weed seeds. If you've got old compost, that's okay. I wouldn't be afraid to use old compost for seed sowing, because they really, it's just to get them going. They don't need too much nutrition available in the soil at that stage, or in the growing medium at that stage. But yeah, you'll find it hard to use just a soil out of the garden. So I've got another tray prepared here in the same way, and this is for some cosmos. Cosmos is an annual, and it isn't hardy. I haven't opened these seeds yet. These are actually for a client. So I'm going to do quite a few. We've got a whole bed to fill with these seeds until we can get plants later in the autumn to plant up. So I know cosmos are quite big seeds, so I'm not flicking the bottom of the packet in this scenario, but I'm just going to tip them into my hand here. And you see, there's a few more in the packet there. We don't want to waste any. And you can see that these are much bigger seeds, so easier to handle. So I literally am going to use my finger and thumb just to place those on the surface of the compost, and I'll be pricking these out within a week or two. Now these will want some heat to germinate, so again these will go in my propagator. Now if you haven't got a propagator, you want a sunny windowsill. And what you could do is, if you sow onto moist compost, you can create an atmosphere for propagation by using a plastic bag and putting it over the top, as long as it doesn't exclude too much light. It's a clear bag. But to be honest, if it's a warm south-facing sunny windowsill, that should do. So again, just a fine sprinkling of compost to cover these seeds until you can't see the seed anymore. Just right down the edge again. And what you can, because they're a bit bigger, those seeds, I'm just going to use another tray just to gently firm them down. And again, they'll be ready to go in the propagator. I have got some I sowed earlier. So these are a different variety of cosmos that were sown earlier. This is Cosmos Purity. These were actually sown by my dad for me, and they're probably, I think, maybe 6 weeks old now, maybe these plants, perhaps not quite as much as that. So they are ready for potting on, and I'll be doing that in the next few days. So I would encourage it. It's a lovely thing to do, to sow seeds, and you'd be amazed how big these plants are going to grow, and they will really give you lots of interest, colour, and food for foraging insects all through the summer. So yeah, happy sowing. If you've got any questions, I'll be very happy to answer your questions if you want to message me. Thanks.